This is a requested video, actually. I asked some people what videos were missing, what they wanted, and this came up. So here it is. Synoptic essays. First of all, where do these occur? They happen in your second exam. You have 3 exams. One of them, which is the first exam, will be Coasts and Changing Places. That's it. The second exam is Water and Carbon, Global Governance, and a synoptic essay. That's a lot to cram into 2 hours. It's, in my opinion, it's the busiest exam. And then your third exam is your Year 2 modules. So tectonics, weather and climate, and development in an African context. We don't start introducing these until after you hand your coursework in Year 2, and there's a very good reason for that. Synoptic means that you're trying to link all the bits of geography together, and that means that you have to get to a certain stage of the A-level where you know enough geography to be able to link it all together. And also, they're really fantastic as a way of revising because they make you think about your all of the things that you learned in Year 1, so that's why we leave them. Anyway, first things first, what is similar and what is different to the other essays that you write? You write a lot of essays in geography, and to a certain degree, the 15 markers, the 20 markers, and the Year 2 essays have a lot of similarities. Clearly, the ones that you write in Year 2 have to be longer because they're worth more marks, and your essay writing has usually got much better by that point. But these are a little bit different. However, some things remain true. We still want an introduction, a main body, and a conclusion, which is what I mean by 3-part structure. We still want to use the peer technique. Now, peer is point, explain, evidence, refer, and it's a way of structuring paragraphs in your main body that really helps, particularly if you find essay writing quite hard and you find that you go off at tangents, or your teacher is constantly saying, make sure you put some case studies in, or you're not really answering the question. If any of that sounds familiar, the peer technique could be your saviour. Because as long as you do those 4 things in every paragraph, you sort of can't go too far wrong. So the point is the thing you're trying to say, like, for example, earthquakes kill more people than volcanoes because they are unpredictable. Okay, so that would be the point you were trying to make. You would then explain that with as much geographical knowledge and terminology as you possibly could. So you would be explaining why earthquakes are unpredictable and how do we monitor volcanoes, and you'd show off all your geographical understanding. The evidence, the second E, is your case studies. Case studies are proof of the points that you're trying to make in geography. So you would maybe use some death tolls to prove your point, or you would use some warning times that allowed people to be evacuated from a volcanic eruption. And then R, you can have L, so it can be the peel technique. For reasons best known to myself, I prefer peer. You refer to the question, because if you, like me, are prone to going off at tangents, it kind of makes you stay relevant. And also, one of the things that the examiner will be looking for is, are they focused on the question? And if you're constantly referring back to the question, you're focused on it, aren't you? Okay, so that really should be in all of your essays. And for Year 2 particularly, we definitely need our essays to have a sense of argument. That's not always true for the Year 1 questions, the 15 and 20 markers. Sometimes it is, but it's always true for Year 2 essays. Okay, so that's the same. The big difference is that you're going to have some resources for these essays. So they're a bit like our Part A questions, where we're given a graph or a photo or a pie chart or something, and we're asked questions about them. We have resources to nudge us in the right direction for these essays, and you have to refer to all of them. Okay, I'm going to emphasise that. You have to refer to all of them in your essay. It's the easiest way to gain or lose marks in the synoptic essay. So that's quite different. Once you've referred to the resources, you can basically play to your strengths. You can include anything relevant. Of course, it has to be relevant, otherwise that's not going to go particularly well. But if it's relevant to the question, you can take it in a human geography direction and more of a physical direction. You can refer to the case studies that you've revised the most, all of that stuff. And the more modules you can refer to, the more synoptic you will be. So what we will do is we will have a look. Okay, so these are the 7 steps that I recommend you go through. And we're going to have a little practice together in this video. But point number 1 requires great discipline, but it's not just me recommending this. Also, the principal examiner for this paper recommends that you look at the resources before you read the questions. Now, you might think that that's bonkers, or you might think that that's back to front. The trouble is, if you look at the resource when you know what the question is, you sort of have blinkers on. You sort of are only looking for relevant information. And actually, the principal examiner will tell you that they think you will do a better job if you look at the resources first. So in this video, I'm going to make that happen because you don't have the question. Ha! So here are 4 resources. And what I would try and get in the habit of doing is just spend a couple of minutes looking at them before you look at the question. Always read the title of the figure. It's a classic mistake in an exam to rush and to not read it, but sometimes they're really, really helpful. Figure 5, percentage of second homes in the top 10 local authorities based on council tax rates. So we've got 10 different parts of the UK and we see percentage of second homes. What do we know about second homes? Well, they come up when we're talking about rural areas in changing places, and we know that they sort of push house prices up. They lead to community issues because the people own the house but they don't live in it full time. So it can lead to a breakdown in community. It can lead to shops and services closing because if people don't live there full time, they're not going to send their kids to the school, use the post office, all of those kinds of things. So second homes we kind of learn as a relatively negative thing. Figure 6, the recently built Rohingya refugee camps in Ukiah and Teknaf in Cox's Bazar have damaged the biodiversity of the area. Wow, there's lots in that. So refugees, people who've been forced to move out of their country. In the case of the Rohingya, it's because of persecution in Myanmar, and they're actually being targeted by the government and being killed, so they're running away. And you can see that where that refugee camp has been built, there's clearly been some deforestation. We can see soil erosion, we can see flooding, potentially related to the lack of vegetation and interception stores and all of those things. Okay, figure 7, we've got Nepal, we've got an earthquake, and we have a chloropleth map. So the darkest green is the most number of collapsed houses. So we can see that some areas are much harder hit than others. And then figure 8, we can see some mass movement. We've got a landslide in glacial sediments, Puget Sound, and we can see that that's destroyed a road. It's destroyed some settlements. It has taken some trees with it. Okay, so you don't take ages, but before you read the question, you look at the resources, okay? On the exam paper, scribble all over them, highlight things, put arrows, annotate them, whatever. It's a really good thing to do first. But then you will have a choice of questions. This one is a practice question that the exam board sent, so there's only one of them. So actually we can skip over number 2 because there is only one question to choose from. Physical processes can cause place identity to change rapidly, whereas human activity always brings slower changes. Discuss this statement. Okay, so I've done some highlighting. The command word is discuss, and discuss means put forward a range of points of view. Just like if you were having a discussion with your friends about your favourite TV series or band, you would probably all have slightly different opinions on their recent song, or you'd have slightly different opinions on the ending of season 4 or something, and you'd all kind of go, well, I liked it, I didn't, no. That's a discussion. The only difference in an essay is that you have to put forward all of those points of view yourself. Okay. Physical versus human. So we've got changing place identity thanks to human and physical geography. So our sense of argument is physical faster than human, or whatever. So the yellow is kind of our sense of argument. The blue is just a bit of revision. You can say character or identity. Humans are all different. We all have different tempers. We all have different likes and dislikes and senses of humour and all of that. We all have our own character or identity, and so do places. It's the particular combination of qualities that makes a place the way it is. So just a reminder that learning what place identity or place character means is often quite important. Okay, right. So what we're essentially saying is, does physical geography cause places to change more quickly than human geography? All right, let's go back. So just to remember, number 4 is, now we know what the question is, how do the resources link to it? So second homes cause places to change. We did a bit of talk about that. It breaks down the community, makes the prices rise, all of that. We can see that the refugee camps have led to deforestation and other issues. So we've got second homes being sort of definitely human geography, and then we've got humans causing problems. But I'd say what's happened in figure 6 is probably quicker, isn't it? Because refugees are all going to turn up very, very quickly. They're going to have to build their houses, chop down the trees for firewood pretty quickly. So if we constantly think of the question, it's about the speed of change. We've got 2 bits of human geography at slightly different speeds. Earthquakes are pretty damn quick, aren't they? So that's going to cause a place to change really quickly, as is mass movement. Those are both going to be sort of seconds and or minutes, aren't they? So much quicker. So we've got 2 human, 2 physical, both causing change in places at different speeds. And what you would then do is you would talk about that in a specific and meaningful way. But you then need to think, what else could I mention? What other things do I know about from my geography A level that I could chuck in? And if I just go back, we're now on to number 5. What else can you add from your 7 modules? Now, I will give you a few ideas, but I would actually like you to practice this as you're listening to the essay. I think it would do you good. So what else? Well, volcanoes are not in the resources, and they cause places to change quite quickly, and they're very much part of physical geography. You could do something on flooding. You could do storm surges, couldn't you? Human activity, you could do rebranding. That causes changes in places. You could do deforestation in the tropical rainforest. You could do the anthropogenic greenhouse effect, which is changing, let's be honest, everything. You could do people moving in and out of places, so you could do diasporas. I mean, honestly, there's just so much. And you wouldn't be able to include everything in your essay that you think of. But that is just a good series of events to go through. All right, look at the resources, then look at the question, then think about how the resources link to the question, then have a little, oh my gosh, what else could I say? And then, of course, it's always good practice to plan. And I appreciate that quite a lot of you don't listen to me when I recommend that you plan essays before you write. And that, you know, it's your prerogative, isn't it? I would say, out of all of the essays that you're going to do in geography, this is probably the one where you need to organise your thoughts, because you've potentially got so much information that your brain is just going to struggle to make sense of it. I honestly think planning is a good idea. And I've just got this. This is a variation on a theme, and you do not have to use it. It's just a suggestion of something. What it does look is it makes you have a 3-part structure. Introduction, this is your main body, this is your conclusion. So it makes you do that. It makes you have a sense of argument, because I've divided this part of the main body in half. So it makes you do that, and it makes you talk about all of the resources. Now, resources. I think there are 3 options. You may come up with another idea, and I'm going to sort of try and give you the pros and cons of each. Your introduction is hopefully going to be the shortest section. It's the least important in terms of marks. It's just nice to have one. If I was introducing this essay, personally, I'd probably be defining what place identity was and talking about where it comes from. Maybe a sentence or 2, job done, move on. Then, and this is my preference, but this is only me, I am not you, I would have a paragraph where I talked about the 4 resources. And that's because I'm a very, very forgetful person. And if I didn't mention all 4 resources in the first paragraph, I would worry that I'd forget to include them later on. And as I was trying to say to you earlier, the easiest way to gain or lose marks in a synoptic essay is using the resources. So my personal preference is I'd have my first paragraph of the main body where I talked about all 4 of those and how they related to the question. Okay, but you could divide them up into the sense of argument. So you could have the resources that prove that physical geography is faster, and then the counter argument where you're saying, well, actually human geography can cause quite fast change as well. So you could equally divide this section into half. Or, I've seen this done really, really effectively, but it requires you to be not forgetful. I've seen people start each paragraph of the main body by talking about one of the resources. So, for example, the first paragraph starts off by talking about figure 5 and then goes on to other information you want to add. The next paragraph talks about figure 6 and then goes on to other information that you know about. I think that's lovely, and I have seen it done well. As I've said to you many times already, I personally would be stressed that I might forget to do them. But why don't you try a couple of those and see what works for you? All right, and then of course you would conclude your essay. And what we have to do in a conclusion is we're going to have to directly answer this question. Just as a gut feeling, I'd say it completely depends on the situation. I don't think you can say that physical geography is always quicker than human. I think it's much more individual than that, and it depends on the specific cause of change that we're talking about. But it would depend on what you included, because of course your conclusion needs to follow on from the points that you've been making. So if your main body is full of physical geography causing really fast change and human geography generally being slower, your conclusion is going to have to say, I agree with the statement, because that's what your whole argument has been. You don't want to have a conclusion that contradicts everything you've said before, because that's not going to be terribly coherent. It's not going to make a lot of sense. Okay, now we have a few other past papers that you can practice this with. I'm sure your teacher will make them available to you, but just try always to use that strategy, and I hope that the more you practice these, the less you will be stressed about them. Good luck, everybody. Good luck.